Chapter 21. How Archelaus carried tidings to the court of King Lusart that Amadis was slain, and of the lamentations that were made for him. Such speed made Archelaus in armor and on the horse of him whom he had chanted, that on the 10th day he met King Lusart riding abroad in the morning to take the air, accompanied with a great train. Seeing they the horse and arms of Amadis, were greatly rejoiced, and rode on to welcome him. But coming nearer, they saw that it was not he for whom they looked for. For Archelaus had his head and hands unarmed, and they were greatly amazed. Archelaus came before the king and said, I come, sir, to acquit a promise I stand bound, to let you understand how I have slain a knight in battle. And albeit I must contend to declare mine own praise, which were more honorable for me, being reported by another in mine absence, yet I am now constrained to do no less for the convent between me and him whom I have slain, that the conqueror should cut off the other's head, and present himself before you as this day, if he slew me. I told him it was Archelaus whom he would slay, and much was I aggrieved when he said that he was the queen's knight, and by name of Amadis of Gaul. In this guise came he to his death, and I remain with the honor of the battle. Holy Mary, exclaimed the king, is the best knight in the world slain? And with that they all began to lament. But Archelaus turned back by the way he came, and all cursed him, and besought God that he might speedily die an evil death, which they with their own swords would at once have given him, but for his own tale, how Amadis was slain in accorded battle. Forthwith the king returned in heavy affliction. The news spread and reached the queen's house, and she and all her ladies lamented, for greatly was Amadis beloved by all. But Oriana, hearing their lamentations, sent the damsel of Denmark to inquire its cause, who presently returned, beating her face, and with a wild cry looked at Oriana. Ah, lady, what a grief, what a misery! So that Oriana trembled from head to foot, and exclaimed, Holy Virgin, if Amadis should be dead! The damsel answered, Ah me, he is dead, and with that Oriana's heart died away within her, and she fell. Then they ran the damsel to Malbia, tearing her hair. Help, help, for my lady is dying. Maliba, though her own grief was so great that none greater could be, yet not for what that she did she neglect her what remedy might profit. She took the princess in her arms, and poured cold water on her face, and bade the damsel fasten the door of the chamber, that none might see her in that passion. She recovered her senses, exclaiming, Ah, friends, let me die and be at rest. Why should ye make me so faithless that I should live even an hour after him? What though his dwelling be in the cold earth, where all love ceaseth? Yet greater shall be our loves when in the other world we are united. And then again she swooned, her long hair hanging to the ground, her hands clenched upon her breast, that Maliba thought that she indeed dead, and cried, O God, let me die also, since they whom I loved best are gone. For God's sake, dear lady, quoth the damsel, let not your good sense fail you now, when it is so needed. Roused by these words, Maliba recovered herself. They placed Oriana in bed, and poured water again upon her face and upon her breast, so that she revived. Take heart, said Maliba, and do not so readily believe such tidings, that kings may borrow the arms of Amadis, or stolen them. Who shall vouch for his truth? But Oriana had fixed her eyes upon the window where she first talked with Amadis, and in a faint and feeble voice exclaimed, How bitter is the remembrance that thou excitest! Long as thou shalt last, never will two others discourse in thee with such pure and perfect truth. Think you, said Maliba, that if I believed his death, I should have the power to comfort you? And thus with such consolation all that day they strove to cheer her who would not be comforted. And the night was worse than the day, and ofttimes they feared that she would never see the morning. But the next day, at the hour when they were about to lay the napkins before the king, Brandoyuas entered the palace, leading Grindalia, and both went and knelt before the king. He, who greatly esteemed him, and had been troubled by his long absence, inquired where he tarried. Sir, said he, in a dungeon whence I should have never gone out of but for the good knight Amadis, who delivered me and this lady and many others, doing there such deeds as only he could have achieved. And he would there have been slain by the worst treachery that was ever known by traitor Archelaus, if two damsels had not helped him, who surely must not have little loved him. Lusart at this rose instantly from the table. Tell me, my friend, by faith which you owe to God and me, is Amadis alive?" "By that faith," replied Brandoyuas, "I left him alive, well, not 10 days ago." Then there was such joy that greater could not be. The king sent to Grindalia to Brisenda, and well was she welcomed for her tidings. The damsel of Denmark soon heard it, and hastened to Orianda, and restored her from death to life. And Melibea sent for Grindalia, that they might hear the whole from her own mouth, and the princess might suffer her to eat nowhere but at her own table, that she might relate it more at length. On her return to the queen's apartment, she found King Arban of North Wales, who dearly loved her. Then was there such joy as cannot be expressed. And King Arban told Brisenda how she was daughter to King Android of Ceruleus, and Brisenda, as well for her high rank as good tidings she had brought, besought her to remain in her court, to which she was nothing loath. Brisenda also sent for Grindalia's sister, Aldovia. This was she who was the friend of Gaylor, and for whose sake she had been so persecuted by the dwarf. So there were great rejoicings in the court of King Lusart.